Welcome to the Lucas Rockwood Show. I'm your host. I'm a yoga teacher, a trainer, a serial entrepreneur. I'm a nutritional coach and a father. But first and foremost, I'm a student. I like to go out into the world and learn things. Usually on this show, I have authors and experts and PhDs and medical doctors. I do my best to bring their best thinking, their best research to you here so I can learn, so you can learn, and hopefully we can all live a better life. This week's show is a departure from that. It's called Losing It All in COVID-19. I'm here in Barcelona, Spain, where I've lived for over 10 years now. We're nearly 2 months into the COVID-19 lockdown. And so instead of our usual experts, I thought I'd share with you my experiences so far during this crisis with the hopes that, well, I can glean some insight and hopefully you can too. To keep things simple and to not get lost on toilet paper or alien tangent conspiracies, I thought we could focus on how I lost my yoga studios. Number 2, how crisis unveils both strengths and weaknesses in systems and people. Number 3, how quickly we humans can adapt. And number 4, what really matters in life. Let's talk about my yoga studios first. The quote that keeps ringing in my head is, "My best thinking got me here." My best thinking got me here. So I started working at age 19. I'm about to turn 42. So, 23 years almost into this career. And the physical manifestation of all that work, the economic manifestation, there's 3 yoga studios. I don't own a home. I don't have any family jewels or anything like that. It's these 3 studios. They're beautiful studios here in the center of Barcelona. Many of you have been to visit them. We've been serving local students for many, many years, thousands of local students with daily drop-in classes, workshops, training events, international events, and it's been a huge source of pride and a very, very rewarding focus of my career recently. It's been everything I ever had, plus a lot more that I borrowed from the bank. I invested into these studios. And again, my best thinking got me here. I thought, I'm a yoga guy. I'm a yoga teacher. I do yoga events. I rent out other facilities. I'm traveling all around the world. I should really put my flag in the ground and I should build something. And it seemed like the best thing to do. Here's what a lot of people don't know from the outside. Many of you do know because you work on the inside, but from the inside, here's the reality of local retail businesses. By retail, I mean, a restaurant, a hair salon, a massage place, a nails place, a yoga studio, Pilates studio. They're terrible businesses. By terrible, I mean the margins are so low that the owners are having sleepless nights constantly. The upfront investment is huge. The margins are so low that these businesses are built on sand. And this has always been true, but it's more true now than ever before because rates for everything from a haircut to a yoga class to dinner have not really kept up with the market. To give you an example, when I first started practicing yoga, which was in 2002, my monthly yoga membership was about 3 times what I charge in my studio right now. When I opened my very first yoga studio way back in Thailand in 2006, my monthly rates were about 2.5 times what they are now. Now, obviously, here in 2020, my monthly running costs are nearly double, but my monthly membership cost is less than half. And this is true for most studios. There's some funny anomalies that happen in perfect capitalism, which is that things get so competitive, so inexpensive, the consumer wins, but behind the scenes, the local business owner is really pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how this wonderful, rewarding business can actually end up in the black at the end of the month. It's a very, very challenging thing to do, and I was really proud to have done it. Well, but really sophisticated business planning and structure, and it was really working. Right? It's really working. And by working, I mean it's working okay. It's nothing to get excited about from a financial perspective. But for the first time as ever, it was really working okay until we were forced to shutter, to close the doors. And for those of you who've ever worked in the service industry, which I'm guessing is about everyone listening, whether it was a restaurant, a hotel, a bar, a club, a yoga studio, a hair salon, to close the doors is the worst idea ever. You should never, ever close. And the moment you close a local retail business, within 2 weeks they can't pay their staff, within a month they can't pay their rent, and within 2 months most of them are bankrupt. Whether they call it bankruptcy or not, they are. If they start bleeding their friends and family, well, that's a different thing, but economically most of them can't weather that storm. This is nothing unique to me. It's a really challenging thing to come to terms with, that we have an entire economy, an entire service industry built on margins that are so bad, an industry that's so fragile, whether we're talking about airlines or hotels or restaurants or whatever it is, margins that are so bad that we can't take 2 weeks off. it's really the biggest insight that I've taken away from this experience is really economically losing everything that I've worked for, is really thinking, wow, that was not a strong foundation on which to build a home. I need to build a home on something that can weather at least months, ideally 6 months, and maybe even a year of economic downturn. Because if you can't manage a couple of months, 6 months, or a year, what have you got really? You've got a time bomb, because maybe a hurricane will come, maybe a war will happen, maybe there'll be a dictator, who knows? But there's a very good chance that something will happen. I mean, just in my lifetime, I've experienced some really major events. From September 11th, I worked in the restaurant industry during the blackout in New York City, and all these events which are just economic catastrophes, and they don't measure up to this one at all. So my big learning from this is build a house that can weather the storm, and most of us haven't done that. Number 2, how crisis unveils strengths and weaknesses in systems and people. So the moment this went down, the moment we had to close the studios, it was really interesting to see on a micro level how my staff reacted. My best staff called me up and said, Lucas, whatever you need, let's get through this. And my worst staff basically ghosted, disappeared, said, don't call me, don't touch me, I'm gone until this thing's over. It's really interesting to see how people's true character really comes out. And so here's a couple of strengths and weaknesses that I've noted on a micro and a macro level. The number one strength is most people are really trying, which I think is pretty remarkable. The government says stay home. I live in Barcelona. It's beautiful. You don't actually need to plan anything here. Just go wandering down the streets, and every day is a glorious day. I'm looking outside right now. It's just a beautiful day. I mean, you go down to the Barrio Gótico, or it's just beautiful. You just go walk around, everything's great. So to tell someone in Barcelona not to go for a walk, it's really, really challenging. And most people, not everybody, but most people are really trying. They're really trying to stay home. It's pretty remarkable how willing people are to work for the collective good, to plug into something that's bigger than them. Weakness that I've noticed here, which of course we've all been aware of, but wow, has it really shown its ugly head, is that there's very, very poor journalism internationally all over the place, from the crappy, spammy blogs to the mainstream media. Just terrible, inaccurate, reckless reporting. In this case, specifically around numbers. I don't know why they would let a journalist, a writer, a news anchor interpret statistics. This is craziness, especially statistics about public health. Bonkers. I can't believe this is happening. It's not a right-wing or a left-wing thing. This is across the board. Terrible journalism, dangerous journalism. Strength. People and the government are really willing to make massive sacrifices with limited information. We don't really know if this social distancing thing works. We don't really know if masks work. We don't really know if any of this stuff works. But governments around the world are shutting down, taking huge losses, making massive sacrifices, really risking it all for the greater good. That's pretty remarkable strength, I think, just of the human spirit, which I've never really seen before on a macro level like this. Weakness, I think that one of the biggest weaknesses I've seen here is that the basic math skills and the interpretation of numbers is shockingly poor. I think there needs to be a public service announcement where there's just a Math 101 class that's broadcast all over YouTube and Facebook. People don't understand math. They don't understand, what a real denominator is. The misinterpretation of statistics here has led to conspiracy theories, crazy politicians. I think people need to learn math. I never put much emphasis on math, but wow, I can do basic math, and I can understand stats. And the misinterpretation of fatality rate, the misinterpretation of infection rate continues all the way to the highest level of government, including public health officials. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Strength. People really know how to take care of themselves. They know how to take care of their own health. Really interesting. People who, colleagues and staff and friends and acquaintances who I thought knew nothing about taking care of their health. Suddenly they're eating well. They're not drinking. They're doing exercise at home. You think, these people knew how to do this all along. That's really interesting. In our back pocket, most of us are carrying around the knowledge of what we need to do to take care of ourselves. We just don't usually do it. A lot of people are doing it right now. It's pretty interesting to see that we have that strength. Weakness. This one is really shocking to me, but people are mostly ethnocentric. Americans are mostly focused on America. Spanish people are mostly focused on Spaniards, and they're extremely ageist. I've never seen this really play out, but the public discourse, the political discourse, private conversations, people seem really happy for older people to die. And they seem really happy for foreign people to die. Really weird, really weird. And this is nothing, I haven't seen this exclusive to any culture. It seems like it's cross-culture. I'm in contact with at least 18 different countries a day because of the work that I do. And so I'm seeing this all over the world. People are totally ethnocentric, worried just about themselves, and they seem to not really care much about old people. Seems like a big mistake. Seems like a huge weakness, a huge weakness. I can't think of anything good about that. Strength. This is pretty remarkable, but parents actually don't need the state to take care of their kids. Parents are taking care of their kids all around the world. I am also attempting to take care of my kids. It's hard. It's really hard. And it's not easy, but we can. It's pretty interesting to know that we can. We can educate them. We can feed them. We can keep them busy. We can get them to exercise. We can do this. We don't need the state to raise our kids. That's pretty interesting. I think it's important for the state to be involved in child care, child education, so that we can free up people to do other work. But that's a real strength to know that if push comes to shove, kids can go home, parents can do their thing. Here's a big weakness. Social media is exploited by conspiracy theorists, and it's really, really dangerous. Conspiracy people have been around, aliens and the Illuminati and all this nonsense, but wow, has this gone big? And wow, have people exploited fear and anger and fear of loss to really play into people's worst sides. And someone can go on Facebook and say crazy things, just crazy things, and smart people saying crazy things, and they're doing it intentionally to get attention and clicks and manipulate and sell books and get video views. Pretty frightening. I'm all about free speech, but wow, I don't know. We need along with free speech, we need some oversight coming from third-party independent agencies who are doing something to moderate or make public awareness. I think people should be able to say whatever they want to say, but wow, there is crazy ideas being proliferated by very powerful people. In fact, the most powerful people in the world. Here's a strength that I've seen is that some people have had the most productive work periods of their life. I would put myself in that category. I've probably done about 14 months worth of work in the past 2 months. A weakness is that many people, in fact, most people are paralyzed. They're like a deer in headlights. They're waking up late. They're binge watching Netflix. They're doing, 1 or 2 hours of quote unquote remote work. And they're just waiting for somebody to flip the lights back on when we don't really know what that means. When the lights come back on, we don't really know what that means. So those are my strengths and weaknesses. My third point I wanted to chat about today is how quickly we humans can adapt. The analogy that I always use is when I travel, it's interesting to me how quickly money, currency, fiat currency becomes normal. So if I'm in a different country, let's say I'm in China or I'm in Malaysia or I'm in Singapore, when I get cash, immediately it looks strange. The color looks different, the texture looks strange. It takes about 24 hours, 48 hours, and it becomes totally normal. Totally normal. And in fact, now I've been away from the US so long, when I land on US soil, a US dollar to me feels and looks very weird. It's skinny and it's really long and rectangular compared to most currencies around the world. But again, within about 24 hours, the dollar is the dollar and off you go. We adapt so fast, so fast. For example, I'm now practicing yoga at 1 in the morning. Literally for the past 2 months, I practice at 1 in the morning. Why? The schedule just works out this way. It just works out this way. I'm so busy, I can't even tell you. I've never been busier in my life, and I can't really get a moment to myself between work and kids and staff calls and conference calls around the world until 1 a.m. So I practice at 1 a.m. And you know what? It's just fine. It's just fine. My kids are at home, obviously, all day, every day. They're doing online school. I've learned that I can get really great education for them online because there's a whole bunch of teachers and tutors and language coaches and things that are unemployed. That's been really empowering. I get my kids to do exercise every day. Dance is working really, really well. New software, new modes of communication, new ways to buy food. People are learning, older generations, boomers are learning how to use the internet in ways that they hadn't before. Younger people are learning to use the internet in ways they hadn't before. Maybe they're good at ordering food, but they didn't know how to use software that older people know how to use, like Microsoft products and things like this. Masks, disinfecting, and hand washing has just become normal. I feel I don't go out of the house without a mask anymore, and I don't know, maybe that'll last forever, but we're very, very adaptable. Is what I mean. And things that feel completely crazy and absurd, like staying home for months at a time with 3 kids in a home, suddenly becomes normal, okay, and just what life is right now. Number 4, what really matters in life. And I always talk about this, but health, wealth, and relationships, I think, is all that really matters. And when I talk about relationships, really, family is obviously the most important. And in this time when really you can only be with family, it becomes amplified. And really quickly, at least for me, I've started to question, like, is this relationship good enough? And by good enough, I mean, have I worked on it enough? My relationship with my partner, my relationship with my kids, will it communicate well with me? You know, my son, one of his buddies at school, his father passed away from coronavirus. And my son was telling me about it, and he teared up, and he said, you know, he doesn't have a dad. And, you know, it's just this moment where it's a sad moment. It's a tragic moment. It's also a rewarding moment because my son would miss me and I want to be missed. There's just so many complex emotions that have come out during this period, and it really makes me focus on family. How can I be a better dad? How can I be a better partner? And what parts of this just don't work? What parts of this can work at a deeper level? It's been really, really insightful. Blowouts, fights, frustration, sure, all of that. But surprisingly, like I mentioned in point number 3, we can adapt. We can get along with it. But wow, it has shown me areas that I need to work on in my family life, and also really, really my heart goes out to people who are older and alone, perhaps widows, or widowers. You know, this situation to be alone in life, I can't imagine, especially during a time like this. So really just help me double down and focus on family. It's just so important. The second thing that I think people overlook is that work is so important. It's so important. And so in the health, wealth, relationships triad, you know, work would be the wealth aspect of that. To have work that means something to you, I don't know what I'd be doing. My mental health would be terrible right now if I didn't have work that meant something to me. My work is so rewarding, so fulfilling, gives me purpose every single day. And so, you know, to have that situation is just so important. And I think some people have realized that they don't have work that matters. And if you don't have work that matters, wow, in a situation like this, you realize you better get it, you better find it. And my thought on that is you can find meaning and purpose in work in many, many different ways. It doesn't have to be, you know, being a snowboarding instructor in the Swiss Alps or something like that, but just actually doing work with people that you care about and you respect, serving clients that you care about and respect, doing something that at the end of the day, when there's a crisis, when the whole world's falling apart, still feels important. So meaningful. And the last one is health. You know, the world's health, public health, has suddenly been called into question. And people are taking it seriously. Health has always been kind of number one priority for me, but I think everyone's starting to realize, like, wow, this really matters. If I have pre-existing asthma, if I have a pre-existing predisposition to pneumonia, if I have, you know, pre-existing health challenges, this is a huge, huge weakness that I need to put into perspective. So what really matters in life, universally, everyone I've been talking to, it's family, work that gives you purpose, and hopefully a paycheck because it's challenging times, and health, you know, keeping your health in mind. So that's my deep and insightful, hopefully, rant about COVID-19. The inevitable question that comes up here after sharing this stuff with you is people say, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think happens next? And I've been really deep in this. I've been reading this long before it even became a crisis here in Europe or North America. And I don't know. I don't know what will happen next. But I call this the quiet crisis because when I look out on the streets, there's very little noise. At night, it's very silent. The air is clear. There's no honking horns. And people are dying all over the place, but we don't really see it or hear it. It's confined to private homes and private hospitals and public health clinics and things like this. And it's kind of this quiet crisis. And I think that slowly things will start to open up, and then they'll close, and then they'll open again. I think people will feel relaxed, and then they'll get paranoid in certain regions, and then relax again, and then eventually we'll get a vaccine. But by the time we get a vaccine, things will have changed forever. In fact, things have already changed forever. The way we think about being in confined spaces, the way we think about travel, unfortunately, the way we think about other cultures, you know, unfortunately, the way we think selfishly, I think things have changed forever. There's good things and there's bad things, but I don't think you can unring this bell. So my closing thought is, let's embrace this new world. Let's make personal and public health a priority. I think this is one of the most positive takeaways. And let's keep building this great world that we all live in. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Thanks for listening. The coronavirus has changed the way yoga is learned and taught all around the world. When I started teaching back in 2003, I had just left the US. I was using Skype to communicate with friends and family, and Skype had just launched that same year, 2003. And I thought, this is amazing. I will become a yoga teacher who travels the world teaching via Skype with video calls. Well, it didn't work. Skype was just as bad back then as it is today. Bandwidth was horrible. It was just impossible to do video calls. But all of that has changed today. Many of you know this, but I've been teaching online now for about 10 years. And for the past 3 or 4 years, the majority of my teaching is online. And in some cases, it's even a better experience than in person. I love in-person teaching, and I hope that after coronavirus clears up, I can go back to it. There's nothing that really substitutes for nose-to-toes teacher-student experiences. But wow, there's some amazing things you can do online. Today, for example, I'll spend 4 or even 5 hours working with groups of students all around the world. I'm busier than I've ever been. It's terrible to have lost my studios. It's terrible that they're closed, but there's new change happening, a new shift happening. And here's what's really interesting, which it's really important that we acknowledge, is that more people are doing fitness at home than ever before, and they're really following through. The normal distractions of going out to the store, going out to eat, going out shopping, going out to meet friends, because all of those normal activities are no longer available. People are dedicating more time to themselves, and the inquiries and the bookings and the questions and the engagement online is really remarkable right now. And so despite all of the financial challenges, the health challenges, the global disruption challenges, it's a really interesting time for health and wellness, and I'm excited to report that there's some really positive things happening. So if you're stuck at home right now, if you're passionate about yoga, if you're a yoga or a fitness professional already, or if you'd like to become one, we've got a whole bunch of online courses. We're not new to this. We've been doing this for a long time, and they're more relevant than ever before. So check out yogateacherscollege.com. We've got a number of different programs, from mobility training to yoga trapeze to breath coach training, and even our big 200-hour teacher training course is now online. Thanks so much for your interest, and I hope you're staying safe and staying focused on positive things despite all of the challenges that are in front of us. We have a listener question this week from James on Instagram. James says, Lucas, you've talked a lot about supplements for boosting your immune system. Can you talk about foods? I guess my question specifically, James says, is about mushrooms. I see a lot about mushroom coffee, mushroom capsules, but what about just eating mushrooms? Does that work? Totally works, James. And interestingly, even your white button mushrooms you'll find in the grocery store, the ones they chop up and put on pizza, they're really nutrient dense. A couple of really interesting compounds in mushrooms. Beta-glucans, it's a form of sugar, really antioxidant and antiviral, antimicrobial, boosts your immune system. And then these terpenes, weird substance that you'll also find in cannabis. And these terpenes, what they do is they're a hormonal precursor, and so they're believed to balance out your system. Long story short is, in a grocery store, superfoods are some of the more micronutrient dense, some of the most immune boosting foods that most people don't eat. The reason that they don't eat them, or at least the reason I didn't eat them, they're kind of tricky to prepare. A soggy mushroom is pretty disgusting. But if you learn how to prepare mushrooms in making broths or incorporating them into stir fries, making a mushroom tea, for example, is pretty tasty. They have a nice umami flavor that you can add to pretty much anything. My suggestion with mushrooms, like you said, James, you can find all these expensive teas and capsules and things like that. But remember, it's a fungus. So when you have a fungus in a capsule, very often that's a digestive bomb. You can take some of these chaga capsules and feel like you just ate a brick, for example. So I would, if you can, experiment with the whole food form. And of course, shiitake and maitake and reishi and chaga, these are all great mushrooms, but just the regular old white button mushrooms you'll find in the grocery store are also superfoods, and they're cheap. They're really cheap, a couple of bucks, and you got quite a bit of mushrooms. So I think it's a great superfood. Include it in your diet. If you are experimenting with processed forms, just be aware of your digestive reaction, because it can put some people off. We have a listener question from KC on Instagram. KC says, Lucas, I'm doing your hip opening challenge, and I noticed in pretty much all the squats, my hips, my knees, and my ankles are cracking and popping. What's going on? Is there anything I should worry about? KC, thanks for your question. I am popping all the time right now, and I normally don't crack that much. And I've chatted with a bunch of my yoga students, and it seems like most people are. I think it has to do with the fact that we are at home, right? Most people are quarantined, self-quarantined right now. Most people are sheltering in place, which means we're walking a lot less. I'm here at a standing desk right now, which certainly helps, but my knees, ankles, and hips and shoulders are also popping like never before. There's a lot of controversy and argument around what cracking and popping is. People have all different theories. At the end of the day, the general consensus is that in most cases, it's not dysfunctional. There's no problem with it. It's nothing to worry about. The exception would be if it's painful, if it's causing movement dysfunction or inflammation. But if you're just popping and cracking, seems like it's some sort of sliding surface sound, some sort of release from your joint. Again, different theories, but the short answer is don't worry about it. Keep moving, probably due to COVID-19 inactivity. Keep going.
This week's iTunes review is by Hits Yogi. Hits Yogi says, Lucas finds a way to boil down the information from his guests so that it is clear and concise. I like the interviews, but I have to say, I learn more from Lucas. He gets right to the point and I truly resonate with his words. Well done and with it. Congratulations, Hits Yogi. You have won a yoga trapeze. Email us at podcast@yogabody.com and we'll ship it to you.
If you're a regular Yoga Talk Show listener, you'll definitely want to get on my email list. Go to yogabody.com/sign me up. When you enter your email address there, we always have free giveaways every month, yoga straps, water bottles, discounts in our shop, and all kinds of other things. When you sign up at yogabody.com/sign me up, I'll send you just one email a week with updates about the show, special offers, new courses, and valuable information that I think you'll find useful. So go to yogabody.com/sign me up to claim your free prize now.